On the 23rd of October 2077, the world was transformed, turned into a barren and ravaged hellscape by the bombs of thermonuclear war. Great cities were turned to boneyards and civilizations crumbled. As the years passed, settlers began to emerge from hiding, venturing out into this new world, a place of strife, violence, and a never-ending battle for survival. Do you think you've got what it takes to survive in the wastelands of Fallout? Then welcome to Lawtor's Excursions, where we bring the most fascinating and sometimes horrifying experiences of the multiverse right to you. And coming to you today, courtesy of the Lawtor's Entertainment Division, is our own little Vault Dweller's survival guide to help you survive and thrive when taking your first steps out into the wasteland. So grab your Pip-Boy, put on your vault suit. Let's see if you've got what it takes to become a wastelander in Fallout. Now, one of the main things you're going to want to be aware of now that you've started your new life in the wastes is radiation. And while yes, since the bombs of the Great War exploded across the land, the radiation has decayed in many areas to a habitable level, there are still some areas absolutely bustling with the stuff. And unfortunately for you, you won't be able to hear, see, or even smell it. For those sporting a Pip-Boy, you're in luck. Its built-in Geiger counter is your new best friend, alerting you when radiation levels spike. But if you're without this handy gadget, well, it's time to get savvy. For starters, forget about swimming. Most water sources are radioactive baths just waiting to top up your glow. And another good rule of thumb is to stay away from anything that's either referred to as, or is itself glowing. A large heavily bombed area called the Glowing Sea? Steer clear. A vat of glowing green ooze? Keep on walking. A big green storm cloud emitting glowing green lightning? You better get running. Spend too long in one of these radiation zones, and you might start showing signs of radiation sickness. Keep an eye out for, among other things, nausea, loss of teeth and hair, peeling skin, and bleeding gums. If you notice these symptoms, then you might want to consider making Radaway part of your daily diet. This delightful brown concoction binds to the radioactive particles in your system and clears them right out your body. Wait too long, however, and you might become one of the rare cases in which a human turns into a necrotic post-human, or commonly known in the wasteland as ghouls. You'll notice your skin, hair, and connective tissue decaying as you take on a new, rather ghastly appearance. It's not all bad, however. If you do turn into a ghoul, you will essentially become immortal, a lot tougher, and immune to the effects of radiation. So you may be thinking, now that radiation permeates through much of the wasteland, does that mean I can't head down to my local super duper mart for my favourite pre-war snacks? Well, you can, but aside from the staff now being much, more rude than before, most of the food there is likely to have a certain tangy radiation flavour to it, which may also be the reason this food has seemingly preserved well past its sell-by date. That or the quite frankly nightmarish amount of preservatives added to the food. So instead you may have to go organic when looking for your daily meal. Growing your own crops such as mutfruit, potatoes and carrots, bottling up your own water, farming your own Brahmin, or even hunting down a wild Mirelurk. Be warned, however, failing to cook any of these items, turning them into tasty Deathclaw egg omelettes, vegetable soup, or a delectable radroach steak, may lead to a case of radiation-fueled food poisoning and several days in the little Vault Boys room. While out there scavenging for food and drink, you should probably be on the lookout for a few good essential items that every good wastelander needs. Stim packs, syringes filled with all sorts of unidentified painkillers, and regenerative chemicals can be found in first aid kits across the waste, and they serve as your main way of recovering when you eventually get ambushed by a rampaging Yaoguai. Clean water is liquid gold in the wasteland, whether boiled, purified, or scavenged from pre-war caches. It's a must-have for any wastelander, and make sure you don't pick up any of the vast quantities of pre-war money found lying about the place. Bottle caps are the currency of today, after being adopted by merchants out west due to the difficulty involved in counterfeiting them and their relative scarcity across the wasteland. Make sure to keep an eye on your surroundings, as following the breakdown of society as the world knew it, social etiquette is now a thing of the past, and the Wasteland is filled with groups and individuals who would rather kill you and take your stuff than invite you over for dinner. So let's meet our lovely locals and the power players of the post-apocalyptic America. First up are raiders. Think of them as the Wastelander welcoming committee, but instead of a welcome mat, they're rolling out a storm of bullets and drug-fueled rage. The various raider gangs are rather easy to identify. If you come across some less than charming guys and gals, covered in dirt and dressed like they're going to an orgy in a junkyard, you've probably found them. Your best strategy for dealing with them? Avoidance. Steer clear of rundown city centres, or anywhere that looks like it was decorated by Pinhead and his gang of Cenobites. Next, a slightly friendlier group. The Brotherhood of Steel. These guys love two things: technology and their own sense of moral superiority. A military order of tech-obsessed warriors and scientists who are active across much of the Wasteland. They seek to preserve and regulate all advanced technology, and you can't really miss them, wandering around pre-war cities, factories and labs in their hulking power armor. They're like walking tanks carrying laser weapons, so you're best off staying on their good side. Just hand over any technological pre-war gizmos you find, then they'll most likely leave you well enough alone. And now let's chat about the Enclave, the Wasteland's most elusive and enigmatic faction, remnants of the pre-war government and self-proclaimed rightful rulers of what remained of the United States. Spotting them is easy if you know where to look: advanced tech, sophisticated gear, and a we're better than you attitude, so tread carefully, as they're not big on making friends with outsiders. But if you have information or skills they need, they might just have a use for you. If you were to head out west, you might bump into Kaisar's Legion, a dictatorial regime that's been enslaving tribes and expanding in the American Southwest. If you spot a bunch of guys cosplaying as shoddily dressed Roman legionaries, you found them, and unless you fancy a life of enslavement and gladiatorial combat, your best bet is probably to steer well clear of these guys. Finally, the New Californian Republic. They're trying to bring back the old world democracy, and they want you to pay your taxes. This federal republic can be found across California, Oregon, and Nevada, and they're easily recognizable by their thriving settlements and well-established military. Play by their rules and you'll probably have a relatively normal life under their governance. They value law, order, and constantly expanding their territory. And make sure you don't forget about the wildlife, as the radiation and a little thing known as the forced evolutionary virus have had a great time turning even the most harmless of creatures into nightmare-fuel monstrosities, all looking to turn you into their next meal. Some aren't that much of a hassle to deal with. Bloatflies, radroaches, mole rats, and other pre-war creatures mutated into oversized, angry beasts can be easily dealt with. Other creatures might present you with more of a challenge. Monsters such as the Cazador, Deathclaw, and Spore Carriers, those created either as a result of a failed experiment or engineered to become the perfect killing machine, should probably send you running. Oh, and if you do spot a camp of oversized yellow, green, or blue humans, you better run. These super mutants can rarely be reasoned with, and are all out to capture you, ready to either turn you into one of them, or make you their next meal. So by now you might have gathered that the Wasteland isn't a very friendly place. As such, you might want to arm yourself. Luckily for you, the Wasteland is absolutely brimming with guns, knives, and explosives. You can find a delightful array of pre-war firearms in most settlements or abandoned towns. Hunting rifles, shotguns, miniguns, all perfect for dealing with raiders, slavers, or other unsavory characters in light armor. But when you encounter tougher foes, you might want to delve into the realm of energy weaponry. Fancy a laser rifle that shoots concentrated beams of light? Or how about a plasma rifle that turns your enemies into a pile of gooey green mess? These high-tech toys often draw power from things such as microfusion cells, and they're a real blast at parties. If you're incredibly lucky, you might even stumble across a suit of pre-war power armor. Slip into this metallic behemoth, and you become the Wasteland's knight in shining armor. Bullets bounce off you and you can go toe-to-toe with the fiercest creatures out there, just as long as you keep your new metal mistress fueled up, that is. And you better have a handy supply of fusion cores available, as she is a thirsty machine. So now that you're armed to the teeth, have been introduced to the locals, and got the lowdown on what to and what not to eat, it's about time you made a home for yourself. But where will you choose, as there are some parts of the Wasteland more and less ideal than others to set up your new home. Large cities such as Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, and to an extent Washington DC are ravaged hellscapes, a boneyard of destroyed pre-war buildings, populated by gangs, mutants, and all sorts of nasties. Some areas in fact, such as New York City, were so ravaged by the bombs of the Great War that surviving military commanders deemed the areas completely lost, never to be returned to. Even areas less devastated by the ravages of atomic war, areas out in the suburbs or far from major population centres, still aren't a great place to live. With no infrastructure, life in these places has become a desperate struggle just to survive, all whilst cooped up in a cramped little city or town, be it those in an old aircraft carrier, a baseball stadium, or a bunch of scrap metal built around an atomic bomb. And let's not forget how dangerous some of these areas are in their current, chaotic state. Take the Boston Commonwealth for example. Not a day goes by where a settlement isn't in need of help fending off raiders or super mutants, and all the area's ragtag defenders, the Minutemen, do is send their general by themselves to go help out. In fact, you could argue that most, if not all of the East Coast has become a lawless wasteland. And if you're after a new home to start again in the Wasteland, your best bet is to head out west, either to Nevada, specifically around New Vegas, where, due to the efforts of the industrialist Mr. House in the Great War, the area was relatively spared from nuclear missile hits, with 68 of the 77 warheads aimed at Vegas destroyed thanks to House's efforts. And as a result, the Vegas Strip has thrived as a shining light of security and pleasure in the atomic wasteland, all powered by the nearby Hoover Dam, and protected by a mixture of Securitrons, goons from the Free Families, and NCR troopers. Now of course you might find it difficult to take up permanent residence in this exclusive tourist hotspot, so alternatively you could settle anywhere really within the territory of the NCR. I mean, sure, there may be whispers of governmental corruption, and you'll have to pay your taxes, but life here is as close as you'll get to pre-war days, thanks to the NCR's strong military and police force. Much of its territory is secure, its thriving economy, vast herds of Brahmin, and stretches of fertile land have made survival here an assumption rather than an aspiration. And if you don't fancy a life of isolation and scavenging, you could take up life on one of the many NCR farms, or get a job in a safe and secure city, such as Shady Sands or The Hub, earning a regular wage in the clove mills and weapon factories of the Republic, living a life in which you no longer have to worry about the threat of super mutants or raiders bursting in on you after a hard day's work, giving you perhaps your best chance of surviving in the wastelands of Fallout. So would you risk it all for a life in the wasteland or return to the safety of a vault? What tips and tricks of your own do you have for surviving in the wasteland? Let us know down in the comments and make sure to subscribe to join us again soon. Thanks for watching, catch you next time.
The Lore Tours Spaceport is your destination for tours through the most fascinating worlds, groups, and events in the multiverse. From sci-fi to fantasy, we have it all. So make sure to subscribe and book your next trip with us.